So welcome back, everyone. It's been several weeks since we've been on a recordings, and it's been August here, August holiday time in Europe. So did you manage to get away, get a break, Johanni?
I did. I think I visited my family in Finland for a bit.
Nice.
And we did a little bit garden holiday here. Half of the kids are still home, so in that sense, it's still going on for me.
Hopefully half of the same kids, not two halves.
For now.
So, yeah, I was also away, also funny enough, in your home country, enjoying the amazing nature and the complete absence of any people. So that was pretty good.
The best part of Finland, or maybe only good part, but yeah.
So now that we're back, we have been ramping up this last week in terms of what we've been working on. And there's a lot of activity happening with us at Snapp Technology at the moment. But one of the topics that keeps coming up between us and a couple of our colleagues is around LLM selection. And it's not that we are looking to change models actively, but we realize that we've become more and more, at least some of us, more and more locked into Claude as a kind of the main model that we use almost all the time. And we have been talking about switching or looking for alternatives. And I thought it would be a good time for us to have a chat about why we're doing it, what we're trying to get out of it, and really just sort of dig into kind of our thought process around LLMs at the moment. And so we could probably follow this up with a conversation about how we kind of get on from this current thinking process at the moment.
That sounds good.
Yeah. Good. So let me start with the question about what are our motivations here. So let me kick this off with my motivations, and I think they're going to be quite aligned with yours because we talk about this quite a lot. Claude is working really well for us generally. It's not perfect. It's kind of got its annoyances, but it's working pretty well for us. The concern is firstly reliance on a single provider. So I shared with you, I think yesterday, or is it Monday, a screenshot of like Claude is down sort of thing, right? And it was just very short, a few requests and it was back up again. That's fine. But it could be a lot longer and then we're kind of stranded. The other motivation for moving on is just, models evolve, models change, and hopefully always change for the better. But I think we've also seen a bit of a degradation in Opus 5 in some areas. So we don't want to be locked into one provider and ride that wave of when it's good and when it's bad. We want to be able to switch when we need to. And then there's a third motivation, which is a bit more sensitive, which is how much American big tech do we want to support? And the Claude subscriptions are pretty expensive. Multiple of us are using them. At the moment, that's kind of okay. And Claude, I think Anthropic's kind of one of the better actors in this space. But it's good to have alternatives, basically.
I wouldn't qualify them better. I should say less bad than the others. But
less bad. Okay.
Of course, we do align on it. I don't hide at all my distaste of American technology, and at the same time, I'm using it all the time. The history of getting accidentally locked into Google has really taught me a lot. We still struggle to get our business out of it, and my private stuff is mostly out, but it took me a lot of effort, a lot of money to get stuff out. So I don't want to get back to that setup. Fortunately, I'd say that with LLMs, the vendor lock-in isn't there yet. You kind of start to see something from Anthropic, some stuff coming that they try, the co-work stuff and things that are baked around their offering that try to lock you in. Claude design, co-work, those things are kind of okay. Now we start to see if you get in there, you might kind of lock yourself in. However, so interestingly, the LLM I really started using first time for coding was Gemini. That was Gemini model. I can't remember what version it was, but that was the one that first model that really worked. But I very quickly started using Claude and Gemini in parallel. I also tried Mistral, but at that point it didn't work. And using two models in parallel is kind of an interesting thought in a sense that unlike if back in the day when you first locked yourself into Microsoft Word, you couldn't use anything else. That was really literally the Microsoft used Word to lock you into their ecosystem. At the moment, the interface between two LLMs is your code when we talk about coding mostly. So there's no vendor lock-in. It doesn't put any vendor-specific things into your code base. It does some stuff around your code base, Claude specific instructions to agents, for example. It puts in the .claude folder stuff by default. But I tend to tell the agent to put it in agents instead. So all agents use, and it's quite happily going to do that.
I want to jump in here to kind of challenge that a little bit, because my view with Claude, so I use Claude mostly in Claude Code, so on the CLI, and recently more and more with the desktop app. But what's happened a lot with Claude is that it does a lot of its thinking and memory stuff within the Claude, of course, within its own kind of universe, right? So all the planning files go in a temporary directory. When you tell it, oh, you messed something up, let's not do that again, it says, oh, it's updating its own memory, all of these sort of things. So I don't know how portable that is, or at least over time, I get a sense that's becoming less and less portable, and that they are pulling you more and more into the lock-in like you described.
That is true, but I think there's different levels of lock-in in here. What I do quite a bit with my LLM projects, which I have many, I give the agent an instruction to keep the technical documentation in a common file somewhere. There's a lot of these things what you mentioned about these lessons learned and certain kind of things, which is true, but those don't really lock you in. That's just degrade your quality of your coding a little bit when you switch and you have to do lessons learned again. But you don't have to tell how to deploy to backend, or you don't have to do how the tests are run and all of this kind of stuff. They are there. So you're not locked in. It's inconvenience more than lock in, I think.
But I think it's heading that direction. I think that's the point I'm making, is that you can kind of see the arc at the moment, and you kind of feel at some point they're trying to figure out how to do that. So
I think they would be stupid not to. These people running in these companies, they must know that they are on a timer. We can talk about the alternatives, but if you think how much money Anthropic and OpenAI and Google are putting into training their models, and some of them are giving part of them away in free models, like Gemini's open source, which is the foundation for Gemini. So Google is giving part of it away. But at the same time, we have Moonshot and DeepSeek and Alibaba in China, who all are building open models. So what is the kind of where's the money Anthropic is going to make? Like, at what point they are going to start making money? And you say Anthropic is expensive, but it's cheaper than Gemini. And I'd say at the moment I pay the Max 5 plan for 110 euros a month, which is not a lot of money for a tool that I use every day a lot, and I really rarely run into the limits. I don't think they make money from my use. I honestly think the compute cost is higher than what I pay them at the moment. So I might be helping them to train their models, but what we've seen Kimi Free or DeepSeek getting to up to par with the frontier models from Anthropic, which really is like, okay, well, these models go so fast that if an open source model is 3 months behind, it might be painful right now, but it also at the same time, in 3 months, it's going to be where we are now. So the difference between an open source model and these frontier models or the Silicon Valley models was big half a year ago. At the moment, it isn't anymore.
Well, that's a perfect segue into the kind of the next topic we wanted to kind of cover in this, which is, what is an experiment going to look like? I mean, maybe the word experiment itself is a bit overloaded, given that what we're going to be doing. You make a statement there that, hey, Kimi 3 is getting as good as Claude. I see a lot of noise about that, good YouTube content, but how are we going to figure that out, right?
Right.
So, I mean, we don't have a structured sort of way of running experiments. We don't have like, hey, here's the same project we're going to build on every single model to kind of see what the output is. We're not interested enough in doing that. We're much more like...
I see no value on that.
Well, I think those are great for if you want to turn those into YouTube content. But I mean, we're looking for tools to get stuff done. We're much more pragmatic, and the tools are only of interest if they're solving problems for us. They're not of interest just because they exist. So running these kind of experiments is essentially us putting ourselves in a real world situation, building stuff and seeing how that goes. Anything else? I mean, that's not very experimental or scientific, but I'm not sure what else you're thinking of in terms of running experiments.
That's it. That's what we need to be doing. We need to run, and we come back to this vendor lock-in and how easy it is to change between models. I can start writing. I can choose Kimi 3 or whatever model we have available, and I can just continue a project I'm already working in, or I can take the next project and start with that. And if it doesn't work, I will stop. But yeah, for a good example is word match, which I've been working on, and I started with Mistral. And I quite quickly moved to Gemini because Mistral wasn't capable model enough at that point. And during the lifetime of the project, I've been switching to Claude code, and now I'm 100% on Claude at the moment. I don't pay for Gemini subscription anymore. So to me, drifting through the models is quite natural. Actually, a big part of WordMatch was built together with Claude and Gemini. That was a time where Gemini was better at user interface than Claude. So I built the backend with Claude and frontend with Gemini. So that's how I see this experiment going as well. Getting access to a model, continue my work. Just simply, instead of opening Claude in my VS Code, I will open something else and see how it goes.
So that's an interesting one. I was thinking about this. So there are two scenarios effectively for us to kind of try out new models. Scenario one is greenfield product we're building, see how it figures things out from zero, right? Because I think that's important to know. If we shift from Claude code into whatever Quen or something in an existing project, that's a whole lot of context and so forth that Quen has got, either and that's going to be good for Quen or bad for Quen. Either way, right? So I think we have to have a bit of both. We have to see what the model does when it's a kind of a blank canvas and see if it can sort of create grid structure, have good understanding, really understand when we give it a goal that it figures out how to achieve that goal. And then we also have to have those models running in an existing project where we see whether it can actually understand what's going on in the project. I think there's, okay, without being too, we don't have to get more complicated than that, but I'd want to see that for myself with the different models I use.
That's it. But I think we will find out very quickly if these models are capable or not. It's very, very clear. You try to, the tricky parts that where Mistral failed and Gemini succeeded was setting up network call security and between Python backend and React frontend. Is it able to figure out? Mistral simply couldn't, but Gemini did. And that's a point where you go, okay, well, this one model doesn't work for me. We are in a point where it's not just the model anymore, it's the tooling around it, like we kind of alluded into it a little bit, thinking about how can these tools drive the software they're building. It's not enough for a tool just to write code. It needs to be able to verify it on a certain level itself. When you run an Android app dev project, you need it to be able to drive my phone and check the screenshots that what I told it to do is actually what it's doing. In the game developer I was streaming last night, I was very impressed the way Claude was driving the Go.game engine, MCP, and verifying the state. The development speed with the game development was much faster than Android development because of the tools around the model, not just the model itself, were very, very good. Interestingly, of course, MCP and agentic skills, that's an open standard. So they should be able to drive and understand these models, but I don't know. I haven't tried.
Yeah, I think that's it. I think we have to figure out whether replacing one part in a tool chain, what that effect that really has. And this is one of the reasonable criticisms of the whole AI world and AI sort of development world, is there's so many moving parts, and to keep things consistent, to keep things reproducible and reliable is extremely hard. And who knows, swapping out a model could take what was working super well with Claude, suddenly not work very well. I had that experience with Gemini, to be honest. I really struggled to take my thinking of how Claude works and then transplant that into Gemini, which works very differently and is not described very clearly, or at least not in a context that made it clear to me. So it's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, we've been working with LLMs. You kind of have to accept certain level of unstable setup and environment. These models just degrade. We've seen it with Claude, especially writing text. It's gotten bad, like properly bad. They have changed something in the backend, even within the same model. Like something has changed. Either the training data is something.
Maybe it's
saw
the
a
prompt.
chart today as well.
It's actually the older. I mean, I went back to Opus 4.6 for some stuff for writing text, and it was equally bad.
Something has changed for sure. The one thing I'm going to think about a little bit about the experiment, because I don't think it's not super worth the experiment if we just throw all the money to China instead of America. These models are coming from China, but they are open weight or open source models, MIT or Apache licensed, interestingly. So how do we going to run it? And I haven't really run them, because you can't run them locally. Some of them you can, but I don't have machines that really can be used. So I'm looking at the kind of outsourcing the hardware instead of outsourcing software. Fortunately, there's plenty of providers, unsurprisingly, that are willing to take your money if you want to run models on their infrastructure. Looking at this deep infra, I think it seems to be quite easy setup. I think they're American as well, but you can run stuff in Europe. I'm not too concerned about the company that runs the infra at the moment. Later on, when we get to a kind of stable setup, I want it to be in Europe by your European company and an open model. So I'm kind of thinking about trying to find an infrastructure provider I can just pay a subscription there. It seems to be at the moment the math works in a way that it's about 10% of the cost of my Claude subscription to be able to run a model somebody else's infrastructure. But I don't know how capable these setup are. It really requires experiment. And there seems to be quite a bit more work to get the tooling around it working for driving a headless browser or things like that. It's not coming out of the box. But there seems to be tools there. Interestingly, Gemini is quite good at explaining me how to set up a model that isn't Gemini.
Right.
So I think that's kind of the saving grace here. We can use Claude or we can use Gemini to set up our non-Google, non-Gemini, non-Anthropic environment.
I've been thinking about it from a slightly different direction, which is that the hosting models once yourself, either on local hardware or rented hardware, introduces quite a lot of work to figure all of that stuff out. And I'm not quite clear yet. I mean, I haven't got into the whole parameter, understanding all the parameters and the quantification and quantization and so forth, all of that stuff, right? So there's a learning curve to get into that, which personally I'm not that interested in. What I've been looking at are providers that offer the full fat models on a subscription. So very specifically, I've been looking at Ollama and Ollama Cloud. So Ollama, probably everyone knows from the software that you can use to run local models, but they also run a cloud version. I was using OpenCode's version of that, which is called OpenCode Zen. Zen, I might try that again. I was just hitting model limits quite quickly. But what these guys do, and actually I was listening to a podcast with the CEO of OpenCode, and he was saying that they make most of their money from this basically models as a service, and they running it on like Amazon hardware and so forth. So that seems to be quite a nice middle ground, right? I don't have to worry about the infrastructure. I can get the full fat models. I can get many different models I can choose from. So maybe I just share my screen here so we can have a quick look. This is what Ollama Cloud offers up. So the kind of the Kimi ones are kind of interesting. LLMs got quite a lot of noise recently, has been pretty good. Same with the Minimax ones, et cetera, et cetera. So you can really experiment with a lot of different models here.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be interested to try the Mistral Large. I'm not giving up on Mistral quite yet.
Right.
So that's a slightly different approach. And hopefully that gives us a bit of, also room to experiment. Right?
Yeah, I think whatever works. The reality is that we need to have an alternative ready to go. I think if we look at the Fable incident with U.S. government, we have to have an alternative. Like it can be, especially the unstable person in the White House at the moment. It can really be that one morning we wake up and all of the models have been cut from us. The orange idiot gets pissed off with European Union and he pulls the plug from all of the AI models. It would be
we'll be okay in
massive
the UK.
damage to them. Yeah.
We suck up to the US still, so we're probably still okay.
Special relationship, right? But this is kind of the real concern here. It would greatly damage the American business. I think the Fable emitters thing already did, because it already woke up, everybody woke up saying, this is possible. We now need to look at everything. But if they would pull the plug completely, that would be even faster decrease, like in the US. But in that did wake me up as well and saying, okay, I need to have something ready to go. If I'm in a client project and relying on LLMs to build stuff there rapidly, and I don't have access to these tools in the morning when I start my work, I have to have an alternative. So even if the alternative is somewhat behind of the frontier model, as long as it works, it's fine. If I get access to Gemini from 6 months ago, I will be fine. It will just work. I can work around the problems and figure out those things.
But I think, so, okay, we got two slightly different approaches. You're interested in hardware as a service that you can then run. You can choose the models you're going to run on that. I'm going to still go for a models as a service and not worry about any of the infrastructure. I would like to find a European provider that does this, and I'm sure there must be them. I just haven't really looked. But that seems to be a nice middle ground, right? When we're talking about US big tech, maybe sort of China big tech, all of this sort of thing, maybe the middle ground is a European company that runs these models, provides it as a service. And, although the models do come from Chinese companies, at least they're being run, and hopefully the data and everything is GDPR compliant, etc.
Well, it kind of has to be. It is, of course, a little bit different when we talk about neural networks and this kind of models where nobody really knows what they actually do. So there should, as somebody who doesn't really deeply understand the internal workings of those things, say, is it easy to hide something malicious inside an open source model? Not sure. Probably not. If you have somebody who controls the infrastructure in Europe, they will see if these models start to phone home when they shouldn't.
Yes, that's
and that's kind of those kind of things. So I'm not too worried about that.
Yeah.
Like geopolitically, China isn't any better than America, but open source is better than closed. So that's kind of my stance on that.
Well, one of the things that I think is probably more appealing of having somebody else running open models is that your data is not being pumped back in for training, as far as I'm aware. Now, this probably is different if we sign up, let's say I sign up to Qwen directly, then I'm pretty sure that everything I do is going to be pumped back into Alibaba and used for training. Maybe I don't have a problem with that, maybe I do. But that's the other reason to kind of take these third-party hosting providers and use them instead of going straight to the model provider. You might not get the latest model, but that's probably okay.
If we look at the lawsuits and the drama over the last half a year, it looks like everybody's training on everybody anyway. So just to comment on that one, because I think it's related, because we talk about these Chinese models and then Anthropic suing them for stealing their data,
right?
Which I find interesting, especially from a company that it's quite fair to say that they kind of got caught taking data that is under copyright. The difference, apparently, according to Anthropic, is that what DeepSeek is doing, that's a contractual violation, whereas what they are doing is a copyright violation. Violation is a violation. So I don't really want to get in legal discussion on this one, but I don't actually feel too bad about these Chinese models taking stuff from these American models. So that kind of also keeps things moving quite rapidly.
Yeah,
I also been very clear. I don't cry. I don't want to say it's okay to do crime. I just say it's funny that people who steal quite obviously copyrighted material then complaining that somebody steals their copyrighted material.
Yeah, I agree. That's probably a whole another conversation we could be having on that.
or maybe we steer clear from that. But that's my point of this here is that the environment is super messy. I don't know who is a good actor. I don't think corporation is ever a good actor. They just care about making money. So that is the reason why when I have no obvious a good player, I bet on open source.
Yeah. I think that's fair. Not maybe the last thing, but one of the topics that I think will impact me more than you is around the tooling ecosystem for these models. So you've been using Visual Studio Code, I think, fairly consistently. And I'm not sure, maybe you can explain, in Visual Studio Code, is it a what's it called, Copilot plugin that does that? Or what's the relationship between Visual Studio Code and Claude? Or is it directly a Claude extension, or what goes on there?
It's a plugin from Anthropic. It's a Claude plugin. It looks the same as the Copilot. It's just a prompt window and output window from Claude. It's effectively CLI, Claude CLI wrapped into VS Code. The reason I use VS Code is that I then have this visual tree presentation of my kit. That's literally the reason. Otherwise, I don't care. And it's very easy to run multiple instances of VS Code at the same time, whereas the Claude desktop client doesn't let you.
No.
So
yeah.
Those are the only reason. I'm not attached to VS Code anyway. It's just something I got started with, and I haven't seen a reason to move away.
I think this is it. I mean, there's so many tools and so many options out there at the moment. You could spend every week doing a different variation. It's important just to keep something stable. And so for me, I think, because I've been using Claude's code mostly, I'm going to have to move away from that because I can't use that with other models. And I looked at Pi as a harness, which might be fine for some things, but it doesn't really support, it kind of doesn't naturally support subagents and that sort of thing, which I've been using quite a bit. So I probably go back to open code, which I played with earlier this year. And so I'll shift my tooling around a little bit. And I think that's probably also, it's probably hard to know where now, in terms of an experiment, what is the factor that's creating success or creating problems. But I think that's probably the way I'm going to have to go with this.
Yeah. I think it's important to get out from these proprietary tools like Anti-Gravity and Claude desktop client. They're super convenient now that Claude Code can drive a browser.
Yeah.
It's quite nice. But my take on this a little bit is that I don't really need to get 100%. I think it's more about having the alternative available, but then using the tools I need. So if I need to debug a user interface, I will probably still drop on Claude to debug it in the Claude code. I'm also quite avid user of Claude Design. I do a lot of stuff in Claude Design, and I know there's some alternative. Ilian was talking about something. I hadn't had time to look at it. I think this kind of Claude Design alternatives are going to come online, and they already are. I just haven't tried. So they're probably going to be out there. But at the moment, the workflow is very easy from Claude Design to Claude Code. But then once the kind of the initial step of a project is Claude Design, Claude Code, spinning up scaffolding, then moving to something else is fine. And if there's a kill switch, or if I kill my Claude subscription, I can then move to something else if I already have understanding what's available.
Yeah, I think maybe as part of my experiment, I might also look at Open Design, which is like the open source version of Claude Design, and see how that goes.
I'd be quite interested to hear what do you think about it.
Yeah, I've got mixed feelings about Claude Design, but that's, again, probably another topic. Good. So how are we going to, I think we can sort of start wrapping up here. I think what we should do is give it a few weeks of us running some experiments and then come back maybe towards the end of September and talk about what we experienced, what's working for us, what's not. Maybe there's some nice recommendations. You and I will be talking a lot in the meantime anyway, so there's probably no surprises for us, but it'd be good to...
Well, I think there's quite a good chance that we're going to do some live streaming of the experimentation as well.
Yeah, we could do that too.
I've been doing so I did some Una Watch development on a live stream, and last night I did game development on the live stream. I quite enjoyed doing it. So if we're going to live stream something, we're probably going to put it on the Snapp Tech YouTube as well, but we both have our own Twitch channel as well. Yeah, so maybe we put it in the link to the descriptions and saying, if you want to follow. I'm not going to be Twitch streaming any gaming unless I build the game myself. Mostly going to be coding in there. So if anybody's interested to kind of seeing the iterations and the kind of steps towards trying this and stumbling through the problems, I think that's probably going to be done live.
Yeah, we could do that there.
At least.
Yeah, I would be certainly interested to see how you get on with your hardware as a service. That would be very interesting.
I might just give up very quickly. I'm one of those people who, like, if the interface towards me doing that is difficult, I will just give up. I'm not interested in digging into too much details. It's more about if I find a service provider like Deep Infra that allows me to do it very easily, and then I will use it.
And I think I'm also trying to manage my own desire to tinker with things and play with things and focus on productivity. Because at the end of the day, that's what we're here to do, is to get stuff done. So whatever's easiest, I think, at this stage.
Agreed. Cool.
Good.
I think that's it.
Yeah, thanks, Johanni. We'll give you all an update on how we make it out with the other models. Cool.
Have a good one, everybody.
So yeah.